Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the September 2nd City of San Carlos Planning and Transportation Commission meeting. My monitor needs to work first, sorry. Tonight, all commissioners are present, so there is no AB 2449 teleconference requests. And so we go into item 3, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we can do a roll call now, please.
Commissioner Anand?
Present.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Present.
Commissioner Tapias?
Present.
Vice Chair Bundy?
Present.
And Chair Clements.
Present. Thank you. Agenda item 5 is public comment for items that are not on tonight's agenda. The commission may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed as allowed by the Brown Act, which is California Government Code Section 54954.2. However, the commission's general policy is to refer items to staff for more further attention or to have a matter placed on a future commission agenda for more comprehensive action or a report. Would anyone here physically in chambers like to stand and make a public comment? You have 2 minutes. If you'd like to make a comment, please fill out a speaker's form in the back of the chambers. Is that a? I don't see any hands at this time. Lynette, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to make a public comment?
There are none at the moment.
Okay, we'll give this just another minute or so. If you'd like to make a public comment and you are on the Zoom meeting or watching on TV, you can join the Zoom meeting at 886-3546-7439. That's the meeting ID. You could also call in at 1-669-900-9128. You can virtually raise your hand by clicking on reactions on the Zoom meeting online and then raise hand. If you're on the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and then to unmute, you would press *6. Lynette, would anyone like to make a public comment on Zoom?
There are none.
Okay. Asking one more time here in chambers. Okay. Then I need a motion to close public comment.
I move to close public comment.
Thank you.
I second.
Thank you.
Commissioner Anand?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
Commissioner Tapias?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bundy?
Yes.
And Chair Clements.
Yes. That brings us to item 6A on the agenda, the approval of minutes from the August 18th Planning and Transportation Commission meeting. Did any commissioners have any technical corrections they would like to make or any comments? Yes, Vice Chair? No, I'm sorry. Any comments? Great, then I need a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the August 18, 2025 minutes.
Thank you, and is there a second?
I second.
Great, roll call, please.
Commissioner Anand?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
Commissioner Tapias?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bundy?
Yes.
And Chair Clements.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we are on to item 7 tonight. This is a public hearing. The procedure for the public hearing is on the slide, but I'll get to read it out loud. Staff will present a report on the history, physical features, et cetera, on the application, followed by the staff's recommendations. If applicable, the applicant may make a presentation. Thereafter, interested members of the community may speak on the proposal, and when all interested parties have had an opportunity to be heard, the public hearing will be closed, and no further discussion from the floor can be held. The commission will then consider the evidence and make its recommendation. If you challenge a public hearing item in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues that you or someone else raised at the public hearing, described in this notice or on this agenda, in the public notice, or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or before the public hearing. Speakers should fill out a speaker's form found in the rear of the chambers and hand it to the recording secretary, that's Andrea, prior to addressing the commission. The speaker should come up to the microphone to speak since the meeting is being recorded, and please identify yourself, and that'll assist staff to prepare the minutes. Tonight's public hearing is on it's 789 Old County Road. Assessor parcel numbers 046-131-610 and 046-131-630. This is a public hearing to consider recommending that the City Council certify the mitigated negative declaration and adopt the plan development zoning, plan development permit, and development agreement. And consider approving the tentative parcel map, the transportation demand management plan, the grading and dirt hall certificate for the development of 2 new life science research and development buildings with a parking structure. So first we'll have staff presentation, Lisa Costa-Sanders. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Costa-Sanders, Principal Planner. Also with me this evening, is that missing the thing?
Details.
Also with me this evening is Alsave Community Development Director, Rebecca Ald, our CEQA consultant, Mark Spencer, our traffic engineer, and Christopher Takumas, Senior Planner. So a little bit of background. The application was originally submitted July 15th, 2022, and those plans have evolved based on community feedback, compliance with the Eastside Innovation District Plan, as well as staff comments. So in 2022, the City Council adopted the approved the Eastside Innovation Plan as a guide for future development within the Eastside industrial area. This site is located within the Eastside Innovation District Plan area, specifically within the industrial core sub-area of the plan. The site is north of previously approved Sobrato development project at 841 Old County Road and the approved Alexandria Life Science campus located at Commercial and Old County Road. The City Council approved the Eastside Innovation Plan to serve as a guide post for determining whether a proposed project meets the findings for approval as set forth in the city's municipal code. The vision plan is proposed to be used at the very beginning stages of project development to determine how a project can be conceptualized and programmed in alignment with the vision so that new development or public improvement, a portion of the vision plan can be realized. So the subject site is located along Old County Road at the corner of Branston Road. The property is 3.4 acres in area and improved with several commercial buildings. The site is zoned heavy industrial with a general plan land use designation of planned industrial. The site is currently occupied by Maury Transportation, and a large portion of the site was formerly occupied by Cemex Concrete Plant. The nearest residential use to the site are located along Hall Street, known as the Greater East San Carlos single-family neighborhood, and that's approximately 420 feet to the north. The site is also adjacent to the city's corporation yard on Branston. The request is to develop 2 new research and development life science buildings with an above-grade parking structure, associated landscaping, as well as on and off-site improvements. The entitlements include plan development zoning, plan development plan, a development agreement, design review, grading and dirt hall, transportation demand management plan, and a mitigated negative declaration. So a little bit about how the project's evolved since the submission in 2025, and that's on the left of your screen, it would be the original submission. On the right of the screen is the current submittal. So in an attempt to address community concerns from the nearby residential neighborhood and to provide for a more cost-effective building, the applicant lowered the height of the buildings, reduced the east building by 1 story, and reduced the height of the mechanical screen as well. They added trees along the rear elevation at grade and along the second level, and added a green screen along the rear parking structure, as well reduced the overall square footage of the buildings. The applicant has also agreed to install automatic window shades along the north-facing facade. So as you can see from 2022, what we call the west building, or the building closer to Old County Road, was 4 stories at a height of 76 feet. That's been reduced to 69 feet. And then what we call the east building, or the building located farther along Branston, has been reduced to full floor. So instead of 6 stories and 112 feet, it's now 5 stories at 85 feet. This is the site plan of the proposed project. So as you can see, the west building that I mentioned is closer to Old County Road, and the east building more in the center of the site, and then the parking structure really aligns with the corporation yard. So the development is designed in 2 buildings, 4-story west building and the 5-story east building, and then there's a central open space and entry plaza. Landscaping is proposed along all sides of the site, including trees along the rear elevation. So the specifics of the planned development zoning, as you're aware, this can create some site-specific zoning standards. So the project does comply with the underlying zoning district IH standards, with the exception of the following. And the height would be to exceed the maximum height of 50 feet. The maximum building height here would be 85 feet, so that's for the east building, to the roof line. Floor area, exceed the maximum floor area of 1.0. Floor area in St. Carlos does include the above-ground parking structure, so the total floor area for the site is 3.4. As well, bicycle parking, the ratios they've provided would be more long-term and less short-term than the code provides, resulting in the overall total number of bicycle parking spaces that the code. Staff is supportive of this, as the use really is more geared towards long-term bike parking. The sign program includes monument signs and wall signs, and then all uses that are allowed in the heavy industrial zoning district will be considered permitted or conditional under the planned development zoning. Tenants will be required to comply with the biosafety regulations that are in effect. So this is the design of the west building. This is the view of the building looking north along Old County Road at Branston. The project is designed with high-quality glazing, a metal panel system, and textured stone. The glazing includes vertical and horizontal fins to break up the plane and provide architectural interest. And this is the view of the east building located along Branston. And you also here can see the central entry plaza with the pavilion. And the ground floor does include active spaces with large glass windows at the pedestrian level. As required by our code, the applicant has submitted a transportation management plan. It does comply with the city's 20% trip reduction, as well as CCAG's, I believe, 25% trip reduction. And it includes the amenities that are listed here. The site is quite close to the Caltrain station. It's about a 6-minute walk or a 2-minute bike ride. So for the master sign program, that does include some campus monument signs, building tenant identification signs, wayfinding signs, like for vehicle, pedestrian, parking. The tenant signs are conditioned to be no more than 2 tenant signs per building facade and non-illuminated on the north facade. In response to public comments, the applicant has agreed to limit the signage on the north elevation to 2 signs only on the west building corner and no signs on the east building. And as I indicated, these signs would be non-illuminated, and that's the north-facing elevation. The grading and dirt hall would follow exiting Highway 101 to Holly Street or Britton, and then taking either Industrial or Old County to Branston. We have limited, based on public comment as well, that no trucks would be able to use Old County Road north of the site. And as I indicated, we look at this project early on for compliance with the guiding documents of the Eastside Innovation District Plan. And here's a listing of all the ways that staff has determined the project is in compliance. They'll be implementing the Eastside Connect. That has implementing the Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan that's also called out in the Eastside Vision Study, supporting district subareas with new buildings of quality architecture, locating more moderate development heights along Old County Road, improves Old County Branston intersection, publicly accessible plaza, and environmental stewardship, and then community benefits. So again, we're looking at the north-facing facade here, and there's a few landscaping improvements I just wanted to mention. The green screen on that rear of the parking structure, that is a solid concrete wall, so that's kind of important to note. It's going to take a minute for the green screen to grow, but in the meantime, headlights from the vehicles will not shine out north direction. It'll be a solid wall, and then the green plant material will grow up on that. They have trees planted at grade along the rear, as well as on a second level deck to try to further help screen the rear elevation of the building. And for off-site improvements, the applicant has agreed to complete the Eastside Connect improvements north of the site to Terminal Way. So this includes undergrounding utilities, new sidewalks, streetlights, and street trees. The applicant is required to pay its fair share for a new traffic signal at Old County Road in Branston. We'll be constructing a new two-way cycle track along Old County Road and installing a flash and beacon to cross Old County at Terminal Way. And then in consideration of rezoning, the applicant proposes to provide the city with community benefits totaling over $4.2 million. The value of the off-site improvements listed here is a little over $1.7 million, and then the applicant will make a fiscal contribution of just over $2 million at building permit issuance. In addition to those community benefits, they will be providing public access to that open space plaza that's kind of the central of the site there at Branston, funding tree planting for nearby residents valued at $30,000, plumb the buildings and landscape for recycled water, and include solar on the building roofs. I've listed here all of the city impact fees. These fees are also paid at building permit issuance. This is based on the impact fees in effect today. There's development agreement calls out the automatic escalators that are already in the municipal code. The developer will be required to pay those. The city does anticipate updating its traffic impact fee shortly, so the developers agreed to pay the traffic impact fee in effect at the time the building permit is issuance, assuming it's no more than 1.5 times the current fee. And that's the same agreement that we reached with Alexandria. All right, so for California Environmental Quality Act compliance under CEQA, we did prepare a mitigated negative declaration that was circulated for a 30-day public review period, February 26th through March 28th. We did receive several comments to the CEQA document, and responses to the comments have been included in the memo attached to your packet. Also is the mitigation monitoring and reporting plan that will be required to be adhered to during construction and operation. So the project has determined not to have an impact on the environment with the implementation of the mitigation measures. Air quality, these are mostly related to construction as well as some operational. Biological, the nesting bird survey, typo, there's no creek work. Cultural resources during construction, hazard, implement a remediation plan if there's any contaminated soil, and as well with building demolition. And then noise, they will be required to do a detailed study of mechanical equipment. So the public notice was mailed to property owners within 300 feet of the site in July for that August 18th meeting. And as you recall at your last meeting, you continued the public hearing to tonight. Staff did mail an expanded notice to all property owners within 600 feet of the site, and that was to really capture the Hall Street residents. So since publication of the staff report, we've received 2 public comments. You should have received those as well, expressing some concern with the project, and then 3 letters of support. And here's your motion. The applicant does have a presentation, and then we'd be happy to take any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Now we'll hear from the applicant.
Okay, so you can advance it right there.
side.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Good evening, San Carlos Planning Commissioners. My name is Daniel Minkoff. I'm here representing the Minkoff Group. Excited to present our new project at 789 Old County, the corner of Old County and Branson. It's a project today that we've been working on for over 3 years to get to today. We used the well-thought-out vision for the Eastside Innovation District as our playbook and worked closely with staff to get to today's hearing. Throughout the design process, we took the time to meet with GESC neighbors on at least 4 occasions, plus our community meeting. We've incorporated their concerns about massing, height, and greenery. And we feel that we've addressed these concerns with the current design that we started to talk about with Lisa, and Tony Marchese from Picard Chilton Architects will go into more detail on later in this presentation. We also met with our commercial neighbors, key community nonprofits, including San Carlos Education Foundation, Art Bias, Parks and Recs Foundation of San Carlos, and many others in an effort to understand their needs and how we can be ongoing partners to make this a lasting impact within the community. We met with individual council members and planning commissioners and gathered their feedback. Our team has made itself available to neighbors and stakeholders throughout this entire process. Notably, through community interaction, we've been able to increase landscaping and open space on the ground level, deploy green infrastructure to help reduce neighborhood flooding, incorporate all project loading and servicing from inside the building instead of having trucks on city streets, reduce the overall project height as previously described, and design buildings that are more open and have more view of the sky as viewed from the neighborhood to the north, and have increased planting and greenery also on that north property line. And then, as in the staff presentation, you see that we have over $4 million of community benefits, including, in addition to approximately $11.6 million of impact fees, for a total financial commitment of approximately $16 million. And I want to mention that we've been working with staff over the last few days and are happy to announce, since the development agreement draft that's been circulated came out, we do have flexibility to allow some of the money that was allocated towards planting trees in the neighborhood near Hall Street to be used at residents' discretion for a window film or similar treatment that they may, a few of them have asked for. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tony Marchese at Picard Chilton Architects, who is here via Zoom due to airplane issues and travel today.
Thank you so much, Dan. And since you have the clicker, I'll count on you to advance the slides. Hello, commissioners. My name is Tony Marchese. I'm design principal at Picard Chilton, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you virtually. I want to provide just a little bit of backfill to Lisa's presentation, give you a sense of how the design evolved, how we worked with city staff to come up with the current iteration. A little bit of a detailed zoom in of the site here on the bottom of the page. It's a kind of an L-shaped site with a sliver adjacent to the city corporation yard. To the north, industrial buildings, and as Lisa mentioned, about a 422-foot dimension to adjacent neighborhoods. On the west, we're flanked by the Caltrain station, and at the bottom, Branston Road and the Sobrato project. And really what I want to show you is the transformation of a site that is currently concrete facility and a trucking facility. Next slide. And earlier, Lisa talked about the kind of refinements in the design. Here's a three-dimensional diagram showing the initial design. It was two larger L-shaped buildings. The building to the east was 6 stories, stepped down to a 4-story building. The total area was around 393K. As we worked with staff and the neighborhood, we refined that design. Next slide, Dan. In the current massing iteration, it's 3 buildings. We've taken a floor off of the eastern building, added structured parking, and continue this idea of stepping down towards Old County Road, keeping the central green space between the 2 buildings and providing access through a Paseo-like connection to the parking. The buildings have less height and less mass. We took about 66.4 thousand square feet out of the project as we refined the design. Next slide, Dan. And then maybe a recap of the earlier slide that you saw. And it went through some iterations in terms of massing, height, as Elisa mentioned. And if you focus on the bottom line, that's really where we are. This is the north elevation. And I think what's valuable about this diagram is you see the original design superimposed over the current design. And you see the reduction in height of around 31 feet. You see it in a percentage at about 24%. Dan mentioned the increased view quarters through the buildings. You see the 3 gaps between whereas before we just had a single one. And again, keeping with this kind of strategy outlined in the vision for this area, stepping the buildings down towards Old County Road, and then the note about adding the greenery on the north facade, as well as the green screen wall on the parking. So overall, refining design, making it a lower scale and making it a more human scale. Next slide, Dan. Just a little bit about the design philosophy. We wanted to create a building that felt comfortable and part of San Carlos. That meant buildings with terraces to allow the building occupants to enjoy the beautiful weather, to access the outdoors, to terrace the buildings down to reduce the scale, choose natural materials, earth tones, so the building fits within the kind of ethos of San Carlos, incorporating a lot of greenery, etc. Next slide. And then adding this kind of interesting heavy timber shade element, sculptural element, a piece that creates a bit of cover for the courtyard, evokes nature. We've had a great dialogue with staff and talked about migrating birds in the area, how it could take on the shape of a bird wing so that it could add some life and character to the streetscape. Next slide. So again, here's that view on Branston Road. You see that kind of central bird wing shape made out of heavy timber that marks the entrance to the building, creates a cover for the courtyard. The ground floor is open, transparent, active uses. The addition of browse at the top of the building, facing south to shade the facade, cut the solar heat gain, a high performance facade on the building with vertical and horizontal sunshades, and then active green space, creating a kind of a wonderful pedestrian environment along Branston Road. Next slide. That ground floor plan, the blue areas are lease space intended to be active uses. In the center, you see a lobby that links the two buildings, fronts onto the courtyard. Dan mentioned embedding all the service area within the building itself. That's the gray area with access off Old County, parking structure to the right, and then just note the amount of green space surrounding the entire project, the upgrade of the sidewalk, and just general improvement of the pedestrian environment. Next slide. A view of the existing condition. The site is walled off, not accessible. You see the power lines that line the roadway. Not such a pleasant kind of pedestrian experience. And again, this idea of a complete transformation of the site. In the next slide, the view looking down Old County with the building in the foreground, the widening of the sidewalks again, the greenery, active use at the base, earth tone materials, and then a building that fits well into the character and the scale of the adjacent Sobrato building. Hopefully that gives you a good sense of the design of the building, some of our thinking. I just want to thank the staff for their collaborative effort in working with the building, as well as input from the stakeholders. And with that, I'll end the presentation. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much.
If I can just make one note before you get to questions. Before you, at your dais and as well at the station for anybody in the public, is the revised wording for condition number 6. And this really relates to limiting the signage on that north elevation as the applicant has amended. So I just wanted to note that revised wording is there for you. If you choose to make a motion to approve the code compliance certificate, you could do it with the amended wording for condition 6. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is the north elevation that we're looking at, right?
That's correct. Okay. And that exhibit will be included in the master sign program that is an attachment to the PD plan, plan development plan.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Okay. Why don't we start? We usually start with commissioner questions, then we'll go to comments from the public while the public comment period is open, and then we'll go back to commissioner comments. And discussion. So I guess I'd like to start to my left with the vice chair. Vice Chair Bundy, do you have questions? And I'm wondering, it's hard to divide up the various actions. So again, we're looking at the mitigated negative deck for the EIR, and then the entitlements, the zoning and the PD plan, and then the development agreement. Those are the items that actually council certifies. So why don't we start with that bundle, and then we'll go and talk about the rest where we are making the decisions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the presentation. I'm going to kind of key off of, I guess, some of the questions that have been raised in the letters. I guess the first one would be with regard to CEQA thresholds for triggering EIRs. Does staff feel that any CEQA thresholds exist that would trigger an EIR for the concerns that have been raised by members of the public? And would there be any mitigation measures beyond those already included that would be incorporated should an EIR be undertaken?
I think we have our CEQA consultant here, right?
Yes, good evening. I'm Rebecca Aldwell-Lamphere Gregory, CEQA consultant for the project. So the decision on whether to prepare an EIR or prepare a different kind of document is actually based on the conclusions of analysis. So an EIR is only required if there's an impact that's discovered that is significant and unavoidable, meaning that it cannot be mitigated through mitigation measures applied. It doesn't actually change the analysis that needs to be done in the topic areas. So the question of if this was an EIR, would we need to do any more analysis on these topics? No, we did all the analysis that was needed to characterize the environmental impacts of the project. And because there were no impacts found to be significant and unavoidable, they're all able to be mitigated through the mitigation identified in the document. A mitigated negative declaration is the appropriate document under CEQA.
Thank you very much. And with respect to like renderings and view impacts, were any CEQA thresholds exceeded that were not mitigatable or had significant impacts?
Sure. So the law of CEQA changes a lot. And gosh, almost a decade ago now, the law was changed to say aesthetics impacts, so visual impacts, would not be considered an environmental impact for qualifying areas. So if it's an infill development, meaning it's surrounded by other development, it's near transit, there's other qualifications which this site meets, then aesthetics impacts are not environmental impacts under CEQA. So no.
Thank you very much. That's the questions that I have on the MND.
Great, thanks. Anything on the zoning or PD plan or development agreement? We can come back around too, if you'd like.
On the zoning, since we're asking for a exception for some of the existing zoning, would the by right zoning, would the setbacks and the square footage, would that be, let me rephrase my question. I believe that the applicant has provided concessions that have more generous setbacks and other concessions that then would be provided in a by right with the existing zoning. Is that accurate?
I do believe there's some additional setbacks. There's also obviously the community benefits that include the offsite improvements that go beyond because of the additional zoning concessions. That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. That's my question.
Thank you. Can I build on that question just for a minute, Lisa, and clarify further, and then we'll go to Commissioner Canasti. I had a similar question, which is just, this exceeds height. The base height is 50. This is at 85, although it's very contextual with other buildings, which the staff report did a really good job of showing us that comparable data. Thank you for that. And then the FAR max, it was supposed to be max of 1.9 or 0?
1.0.
And then this is 3.48. So can you just continue a little bit and talk about why we allow projects to exceed the baselines, and then how that relates to the community benefits that we get back?
Certainly. So the city does have a code provision for planned development zoning, and that's more like a site-specific zoning for the site. The sites do need to be greater than 1 acre in area, so it's not typically applied to smaller sites, but it's to try to encourage a higher quality design than would be, if you just did a by right project. So it's supposed to be superior than if you were to compare it to something that you could do under the underlying zoning. What we also take a look at then is what's the added benefit to the developer with this additional height, this additional floor area. We hire a consultant to do a fiscal analysis, and they assign a value to that additional building area. In this situation, they've assigned a value of $8.4 million, and what the city's policy is in the negotiating development agreements is we split that with the developer. So the city would like to see community benefits equaling about $4.2 million, recognizing that developer is a for-profit and is only going to build the project if it pencils out for them. And so the developer has agreed to meet that negotiation and came forward with a community benefit offer of $4.2 million.
Thank you, Lisa. That's very helpful. Okay, we'll go down to Commissioner Canasti. Any questions to clarify?
Yes. So I just want to make sure I understand the process here. So one, we're changing the zoning requirement from heavy industrial to planned development. That's correct, Lisa?
That's correct. However, in the planned development zoning, we still are referencing the heavy industrial for any other code requirements.
And so the planned development gets you the height.
The height and the floor area. And you're approving this development plan. So you're saying you need to build exactly what we've seen in that attachment.
Right. It's my understanding under the municipal code that the rezoning has to be consistent with the general plan, and our findings show that it is, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and also that the amendment of the zoning has to be in the public interest, health, safety, and welfare, and our findings show that it is, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then lastly, the rezoning has to be appropriate to the character and site of the surrounding land uses, and our findings that I've seen show that they are, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go around the horn. Commissioner Tapias.
Thank you. A few of my questions were already addressed in kind of the other questions. I have more of a process question around how we dealt with public comment, and can you go into a little bit of like the different kind of phases of public comment and public notice?
Certainly. Well, as soon as we speak with a developer, we get some phone calls, hey, we're interested in this property, and we let them know once you have a development plan kind of ready to go, staff has had a chance to look at it, you look like you're about on track with something we would support, we always encourage them to do some very early outreach to the community. So that may be residential neighbors, or it could be the surrounding commercial property owners. The developer did that. They did reach out to the neighborhood. Staff has also had several meetings with the adjacent neighborhood. I haven't spoken to any of the commercial property owners around the site, but oftentimes we do that as well. Nobody's reached out to us. With that process, then, we hear the comments and the feedback, and we work with the developer to see, are there ways to adjust the plan to try to accommodate some of that feedback? In some situations, yes, they can. In others, the project just wouldn't pencil out if they made the 50-foot height limit. We wouldn't have a project before us today. So that's kind of our process, is working with the developer, hearing comments from the community. In some situations, we're able to meet with a council subcommittee if it's a negotiations item, and in this one we did, and they were supportive of the off-site improvements and the structure of the development agreement.
And how many rounds of public comment did we hear in this process?
It definitely varies.
In this particular project?
Yeah, I think Al and I met with the Greater East Side neighborhood about 3 times.
Got it. Okay. The reason I'm asking is, one, I want to understand kind of how many rounds of feedback we had. So sounds like 3. Sounds like some of that feedback was incorporated, and some, unfortunately, may not have been able to be incorporated. But there was a clear process followed, and people around the community had the opportunity to make their opinions known.
Certainly, and that's earlier in the process. So then we then did the public noticing, as you know, and since there I have met with one resident, we had an in-person meeting here at City Hall, went over the plans, got their feedback, and I was able to work with the developer to make a few further changes, and that's based on what you've heard this evening. There will be an opportunity for public comment in a moment.
Public comment period. Not right now, but yes, in a public comment period. Lisa, just clarifying what Commissioner Tapias was asking about, those 3 different opportunities, that was just for the 2025 application, correct? Because
It was as the
or was that
project
overall?
evolved. I don't have the exact dates of meetings, but it was as the project evolved.
Between 2022 and 2025 as the conditions.
I know the GESC reviewed an earlier version of the project, and then we've shared with them the latest version as well.
That's what I recall. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions,
Thank you.
Commissioner Tapias, on those topics? Okay, Commissioner Anand?
Thank you for the, thank you for the presentation. Yeah,
You
go
asked
ahead.
staff how many times we met. Did you want to hear from the developer as well with their meetings?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that there were different.
Yeah,
Yes,
we weren't involved in those meetings.
that'd be great.
You want to come to the room?
Thank you.
Over the last 3 years, we had 5 individual meetings with GESC as well as their leadership and members.
Thank
So
you.
3 and 5.
Back to Commissioner Anand.
Thank you for the presentation. So just tailing off of the community aspect, I see some support from the local nonprofits. What kind of outreach or communication has happened between this project and the local nonprofits? Like, what's the relationship? I'm just curious.
It started with trying to find out what the need is. We work in lots of communities on the peninsula, and everyone is different. What Sunnyvale needs versus Palo Alto versus San Carlos. So we try to understand the individual needs of that community. We try to meet with the individual groups, and then we decided to say, hey, as someone who's going to be here for a long time, what can we do to provide besides just steel and glass and buildings? So we've met individually with, I think, about 5 or 6 different groups. We talked about what their needs are, either in terms of programming space, financial or otherwise, and we try to craft it as part of our proposal.
Great. Also, I see there is some concern about privacy from the neighbors on Hall Street, and with that, I appreciate the installation of window shades, like the automatic shades, but other than that, we can provide all equipment, but equipment is as good as people who use it. So any kind of operational controls or thresholds related to that, for example, somebody working at office at 10 p.m. and the lights are on. So what measures are there in place?
So with California Title 24, you actually have to have occupancy sensors. So lights aren't just on using electricity all the time. So in commercial buildings, they go off, but the shades are also programmed for certain hours a day. Because what if there was, these are life science buildings, someone's doing an experiment in the evening, they may need the lights on then. Or the janitorial team is coming through to get the buildings ready for the next day. So the night shades are usually an extra layer that you set based on hours of the day. So that way, if someone's coming in, you don't have the light coming out of the building.
Also, regarding the tree planting fund, which I think is a very good initiative to help the neighbors out, any plans on the equitable distribution of the plantation, or will you just kind of hand over the amount to GSC and it's up to them?
So
What's the
that's,
process?
we've been working with, you want to go for it?
Sure. They're actually going to hand over the amount to the city, and we're going to help manage that. So the city will do the outreach to the neighbors, we'll manage the reimbursement process, and as the developer had suggested, the development agreement could be amended to say it's either for tree planting or the equivalent amount of money towards some privacy film on a window or some other treatment.
Regarding the TDM, the 27% reproduction target, it's ambitious, and if it's achieved, it's amazing. Any kind of milestones or checks that are planned out in order to see if that's actually being met?
Certainly. So the applicant will be required to also work with CCAG, the City and County Association of Governments, or our local association, to also confirm compliance with the transportation demand management measures. And then also there's thresholds. I believe it's the first year of occupancy, and then every year thereafter they need to give us some reports that show what the trips are. Further, when a Transportation Management Association is formed, because that's in the Alexandria Development Agreement, they will be required to participate in that. If that is not formed, they've agreed to participate in the commute.org TMA.
Okay. Regarding the affordable housing fee, it's 6 million at the time of the permit, or how does that?
It's $6 million based on the fee today. I do not know if that fee has an escalator in it. If our code has an automatic escalator, most of them are tied to construction price index, then they would pay the fee with that index at time of building permit issuance.
So this is a 15-year-long project?
It's a 15-year development agreement.
15-year development agreement. So with that and construction fee, it keeps going up every year. So if it's like 6 million, what 6 million can get us today, 6 million will not get us that in 10 years from now. So how is that accounted for in the plan?
Right, so I know our code does have an escalator in it, I just don't have that with me, but development agreements typically are, it's considered a contractual relationship between the developer and the city, and so the developer's asking for certain assurances, and one of those is that the fee's not going to be, substantially increased, and their project would no longer be financially feasible. So in exchange for the project, the community benefits, the city has agreed to hold those fees at the price of today with those escalators.
And my last question will be, thank you for bearing with me. My last question is regarding the glass screen as seen in the photos, like it's all glass. And I understand that some consideration was given to the avian life as well. But with that, just this afternoon, a bird came and hit my patio door. Luckily, the bird was fine. But any measures or any special kind of glass that's being used there?
Yeah, so as it's become much, much more of an issue, especially as we get near the bay, the avian issues, bird safe design has become a big part of it. And it's not just the glass, it's also how you treat the glass. There can be frits, there can be patterns, things that are actually somewhat hard to see as a human, but birds can perceive, and it's different parts of the building. It's more important, for instance, corners of buildings usually get a somewhat denser frit than near the middle, because if a bird can, say, see through the corner, like the corner of this desk would be here, right, they might think that the tree over there, somewhere they're going, and not see that depth that we see as humans in two planes of glass. So there's an art and a science to choosing glass and avian issues.
And you will be incorporating
And
that.
we'll be incorporating it in our project. Yes.
Thank you for the assurance.
Great, thank you. My questions regarding the mitigated neg deck, the zoning, and the PD plan were all answered. So I wanted to give others an opportunity to cover the rest of the topics, and then I have a few more questions. So I think, Commissioner Anand, you got all your questions answered. Let's go back then. Commissioner Tapias, did you have anything regarding the parcel map, the TDM, grading and dirt hall, any of those?
I just have a small question, more of a clarification. I don't understand the little L piece of the plot. Like, what are we doing there? Is that just green space, or?
It is an artifact of when there was a railroad spur that went down that L in front of the corporation yard and serviced this property. So it is still our property. However, there are several easements over it, one for the neighboring light industrial building, the other for the city corporation yard. In front of the city corporation yard, there's some nice greenery, grasses, and mature trees. Those will all stay there as is.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
I wondered the same thing. Do you have any other questions at this time?
No, thank you.
No,
All set.
okay. We'll come back to the vice chair.
No questions on those items.
Okay. Commissioner Canniasti?
Yes, Lisa, I might have two questions here. We got in our package 2 emails. One was from Elizabeth Rossi, August 25th email. Did staff respond to her on that email, or did you?
I had a meeting with her,
Okay.
and
how-
she is here this evening and can
how did
probably
that go?
expand on those comments.
Okay, all right. And then there was also one from Yifi Ma and Ying Yang. That
We
just got-
acknowledged receipt of the comment.
Okay, and that really has to do with the EIR, which we
Correct.
talked about. And
Yes.
just for my comment is, I think it's sufficient. But do you plan to respond to her on that, or?
I acknowledged that we had received her comment. It would be provided to the commission.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks. I just had a couple more questions. We've been talking about privacy and lighting, and understand the solid wall with the parking structure that would face 1 block away, the residential portion, is that right? Are there other ways, per, one of the comments, are there other ways to make sure that lighting does not directly go in the direction of the residential houses nearby?
Yeah, our San Carlos Municipal Code does require that lighting not shine onto adjacent properties. So we do require a photometric plan that shows all the lighting levels at the locations. We have had a situation with another project where they had a nice kind of glow at their eave, and it was pretty bright. So based on some concerns from the neighbors, we were able to work with them and really turn that down. So if there's any issues, we'll try to work with the building owner to try to adjust that, but really the lighting needs to be downlit, and then that rear screen, I think the window screen will really help as well.
Right, and then the north elevation, the changed signage, and signage just on the west building, but not on the east building. Is that the purpose of the changes there as well?
Correct, to try to reduce the signage that would be visual from viewing it if you were looking south from the residential, so that it would only be on that very kind of west corner of the north-facing west building. The applicant's desire is to have it viewed when you're coming down El Camino Real or from the Caltrain, that you could see it even on Old County. It'd be, your marker. But those signage would be non-illuminated.
Non-illuminated.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. In terms of, in a similar vein, proposed plantings for the second floor of the building. I know there was a comment that, of course, deciduous trees can be difficult and they are not an all year round screen. Can you comment on the types of trees that might be planned and whether evergreens are possible there, or what the thought was when it becomes wintertime? Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Dawn Jedkins. I'm with DES Architects and Engineers.
Welcome.
We're the executive architect and the landscape architect for the project. So we've selected a tree. It's called a Brisbane box. There is a fairly tight space along that northern edge of the site. So we wanted something that would be quite vertical, that would have a pretty dense and robust branching structure, so it's not kind of swaying back and forth and hitting the glass and doing things like that, and would also be evergreen. So that tree can grow up to 40 feet tall. And so we're planting that tree both at grade, so all the way from the parking structure all the way across to Old County. We'd have that same tree on the appropriate spacing, and then that same tree would step up and be on that second floor terrace. And so the terrace configuration, the occupied space of the terrace is just between the buildings. The piece that extends along kind of almost 2/3 of the facade of both of the buildings would be just planter. That planter needs to be at least 3 feet tall from the walking surface to support that size of tree and the tree growth. So we fully expect that tree to get at least 30 feet tall. And then we'll have an understory of planting below that tree as well, kind of medium to large scale shrubs. So when you're actually sitting on the terrace, there'll be no view from the people on the second floor terrace looking out towards the neighborhood. And that tree elevation, we have about 22-foot first floor, because we've got a tall space to allow for all that service to occur underneath the terrace. And so that gets us to about the roof level of the adjacent high bay industrial structures. So then that's bringing that tree canopy, up and above that. So we're trying to do as much as we can to kind of green up that facade.
Got it. And so the second story is actually quite high, you're saying, because the first story is so tall?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you think about the 35-foot tall tree on top of a 20-foot plinth, you're getting, and plus the 3 feet of planter, you're getting a pretty good height.
Pretty good height.
On those trees.
And at what rate does the tree grow? So how long until it's like fully built out,
It's
grown
considered
out?
a fast-growing tree. That can vary a good deal on soil and weather conditions and things like that. But we're anticipating that when that tree goes in at planting stage, it'll be about 20 feet tall. And the nature of a tree at that age, it's going to be branched all the way down. And then it naturally starts to grow up, and then we, train it, and it naturally thins at the base, and then that lower plant understory will kind of start to fill in. So we're going to get a pretty good height on those trees initially. They'll be a little bit more narrow, obviously, because they're new, but ultimately it's considered a fast-growing tree.
Great. It sounds like you've put a lot of thought into that. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. And in responding to comments, we appreciate
Sure.
that thoughtfulness.
Thank you.
Thank you. I had just had two other questions, I guess, or maybe just one question. Lisa, can we talk about the short-term bike spaces as opposed to the long-term, or maybe somebody else? Yeah, and maybe, is it Mark from traffic? If we could talk about the utility of the short-term spaces versus the long, I realize there's the same amount of parking. It's just the division between the short and long is so different from our standard. Can you talk about why that works? And, is our standard still what it needs to be if we're so pro a long-term space?
Sure. So I'm Mark Spencer with W-Trans, and we were the transportation consultant on the CEQA analysis. With respect to short-term versus long-term parking spaces, the city's standards is a separate issue. What we have here is a unique site and a fortunate site in many respects. All of these projects in this part of East San Carlos are very proximate to Caltrain. That allows for good TDM, the transportation demand management, because if you're encouraging people to use transit, you have to think about what that first and last mile looks like on either end. How do you get folks from Caltrain to the site? Right? Hence the crossing at Terminal and the bike lane improvements on Old County Road. So we want to make sure that we have enough parking spaces, particularly for people who are going to be working there, longer term, right? Short term is turnover, short-term parking for bicycles. You tend to see that more in commercial, in retail, in things where you have more of that. Now, in reality, you just want to have a good supply of parking, bicycle parking. Short-term, long-term, let's be honest, there's not a lot of enforcement. You don't have folks going around there going, no one's chalking the tires on bicycles, I hope, right? But it doesn't happen. So what you really want to think about is not whether the designation's long versus short, but where they're located, the functionality of them, and just the total supply to make sure that it works hand in hand with your TDM program. Your TDM program is also going to involve other measures, whether it's transit passes, if it's part of a TMA, shuttles to the Caltrain station, and so on. So it's a combination of all of these things that helps drive down the total number of trips. So I encourage you to think of total supply of parking versus the ratio of short versus long.
Right. And when you say location of spaces, do you mean on the site plan or relative to the transit station?
Both.
Yes.
Okay, so on the site itself.
If you could comment on the site plan, then how does it lay out, and is that optimal?
I'd have to go back and take a look at the site plan from when we first, the version that we looked at and where those bike spaces are. Typically, you're going to have shorter term spaces for things like deliveries. If you have bicycle deliveries from downtown and restaurants or other types of things within the area, those are where you want to, they're going to be closer to the door, they're going to be on sidewalks or closer to the sidewalks. Your longer term bicycle parking, quite frankly, is more likely to wind up in your garage where you have the majority of your parking for everything. The site is big, but it's not that big. Having your longer term bicycle parking within the garage or on the peripheral part of the site is not problematic. More important is it situated to the buildings, but also is it secure? Okay. And from what we looked at prior on this site, and we were looking at total bicycle parking, we didn't flag anything as being, okay, wait, this is problematic or something's out of whack. All of that kind of gets refined and reviewed, though, as you get into more detailed design, also on the garage and on the site, and where things kind of fit. And sometimes you look at this and say, well, what are the types of bicycle racks? What are the type of bicycle facilities that you're putting in? And then where does that fit a little easier? And sometimes things get modified as a result of that as well. But you want to make sure that the total numbers are provided within the site itself.
Got it. Thank you. That was very helpful.
Sure.
I had one quick question for the applicant, then we want to go to public comment after that. And so, Daniel, we saw public comments requesting a point of contact throughout construction, and then a post-completion walk of the building so that they could understand what was visible. I just wanted to ask, is that reasonable? Is that something you had spoken to any neighbors about? And if it is reasonable, I'm not sure that that rises to the level of putting it into the conditions of the permit, but I just wanted to ask you to comment on that.
So 2 separate items. One is during construction. We absolutely, as best practice, want to make sure that the site superintendent, the project, we don't want there being a problem on site and neighbor calling Al or someone, or Lisa or someone from their department saying there's a problem. They want to call our superintendent, then our project manager, then our project executive, and then if nobody's listening, the city should be the last person to hear about it. So we always have a chain of phone numbers and emails that should be called. It's usually posted on the construction fence. We usually send out notices before the project saying what to do, so that way people don't call Lisa now. And then after the project, or as we're getting near completion, we usually do some community events to show, especially the spaces that may be private to a company once they're occupied, just to say what's going on and a thank you. So it's just a matter of course.
Right. Very helpful. Thank you. Okay. Any other clarifying questions from commissioners before we go to public comments? Okay. Then I'd like to go to public comments. If anyone would like to make a public comment on item 7A, we're talking about 789 Old County Road. Please fill out the request, the speaker's form located in the back of the council chambers if you're here. Or you may raise your hand and then we can call on you. If you are on the Zoom meeting, first we're going to do people in person, then we're going to go to any comments on Zoom. So if you are in the Zoom meeting and you'd like to make a public comment, you can call the phone number listed on the screen, 669-900-9128. Or if you're watching on Zoom, the meeting number is 886-3546-7439. And then you can virtually raise your hand. If you're on Zoom, you click reactions and raise hand. And if you're on the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And then to unmute, you press *6. So first I'd like to call up Elizabeth Rossi to the podium. Thank you for your written correspondence. It's helpful to see it ahead of time. And thank you for being here. Welcome. You have 2 minutes.
I'm wondering if, before I get started, if Mr. Minkoff could bring up the slide that I can show you where my house is compared to the project.
I would have no problem with that. I was trying to figure out where your house was relative to the, and where Hall Street is. It's just beyond, right at the top.
That doesn't have a building in front of it.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
And you see my patio there. Speak into the microphone. Oh,
please.
I'm so sorry. Thank you. For the people online. I'm that house that doesn't have the building in front of it, has a parking lot, and my second story and a patio on the side of the house. Okay, so I'm Elizabeth Rossi. Thanks for letting me speak tonight. I kind of threw out my proposed comments because I just want to address the outreach to us, because the GESC isn't the same as Hall Street residents. I first found out about the project when we were invited to go to the site and talk to the developer about it. So I learned about the project, gave them some of my feedback. We all there was a sign-in sheet, we signed in, but I never heard anything back from that. And it wasn't until we got the letter from the city last week that I heard again officially about the project. So I feel like there's been not much outreach to us who are going to be impacted by it from the developer of the city. I really appreciate Lisa meeting with me last week and some of the changes that were made as a result of that meeting. So let's see, back to my official comments. In my letter, I spoke about the cement plant and the light and the noise from that, and how even though the project is over 400 feet away, we definitely felt the impacts of that project at my house. So this is an even bigger project. I think the impacts will be greater on us. And I'm just worried about that. I really would love to have renderings so I can see what the project will be from my backyard. The renderings that were done, I just don't think are adequate. They're taken from Hall Street, and I don't really care what the project looks like from Hall Street. I care about what it looks like from my patio, from my second floor, maybe the first floor even. So that would be very helpful to have those renderings so that I can really speak intelligently about what the impacts might be on us. I think a lot of the requests that I've made have been commented on tonight. For that second floor terrace, I'm really happy to hear about the height of the trees and the planting in between. I hope that that planting will also cover when people are standing, not just sitting, and that it extends all the way to the east side, because at the moment it doesn't look like it does.
Your 2 minutes is up. If you wanted just to conclude.
Yes.
Sure.
So my last sentence was that the measures that I talked about in my letter, I think will help balance new development with neighborhood preservation, and I hope that you can adopt them. And thanks for your time and your consideration.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other speaker cards for people here in public? No. Okay. Thank you. And so we'll turn to you, Lynette. Lynette, are there any hands raised on Zoom to make a public comment? We're on item 7A, 789 Old County Road.
Yes, we have. We have 4 hands raised, or increasing. There are hands raised. The first speaker is Scott Beal.
Welcome, Scott, and you have 2 minutes. Scott, can you hear me? Are you there?
Can you unmute, Scott? There you go. You can speak now, Scott.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Scott Beal, and I'm a business representative for UA Local 467, plumbers here in San Mateo County. I'm speaking tonight for a few hundred San Carlos residents who are members of my union, along with other affiliated unions of the San Mateo County Building Trades Council. These residents have entrusted me to be an advocate for projects that promote sustainability, equity, and help create a robust local economy. I'm here tonight asking you to support the proposed project at 789 Old County Road, since it will accomplish each of these objectives. This is the right kind of project in the right location. It complies with the vision for the East Side Innovation District and with first-class architecture and design. The building will be flexible in its uses and can accommodate life sciences, R&D, or office tenants. It will also improve the walkability, streetscape, and safety of the surrounding neighborhood. This developer will be using a general contractor that has a long history of employing the local construction workforce and having apprentices on the projects who are enrolled in our local training programs throughout San Mateo County. This means more opportunity for San Carlos construction trade families to work in their own community. I want to thank you for your service, and please send this to the City Council with your recommendations. Thank you again. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments, Scott. We appreciate it. Lynette, do we have the next speaker?
Yes, next speaker is Jennifer Rossi.
Hi, Jennifer. Welcome. You have 2 minutes.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for taking my comment. I am one of the co-presidents of the GESC board. I do appreciate that the developer has met with several of us over the past 3 years. I do want to speak to a few points that I think have been misrepresented tonight in the presentation. One is, I believe that the presentation said that this development complies with the East Side Vision Plan, and GESC has, in every meeting with everybody, including Lisa and Al and developers, city staff, and anybody that we've met with, have expressed that this does not comply with the East Side Vision Plan that all of us participated in, and you paid $700,000 to have consultants create a plan, and it needs to be followed. The plan states that the buildings will tier away from the neighborhood. That means the buildings closer to the neighborhood are shorter than the ones next to it, south of it. So this building being proposed is actually taller than the Sobrato building. The heights that were shown to everybody tonight are actually not the true height of the building. I would appreciate a really transparent presentation that goes all the way to the top of the mechanicals, so it's really clear how tall the buildings are, what the real impact is going to be to neighbors, as well as I don't understand why the GESC letter was not included in the meeting packet. We sent a letter about our comments on the EIR, or requesting for an EIR, and the neg deck, and that was not included in this packet. And I don't understand why, so I would like that answered. I also want to tell you that I live on I live on Cherry Street, and we can see the Alexandria building at night. We can see the lights in our backyard. That is 0.4 miles from my house, or an 8-minute walk. I think, according to the numbers that Lisa gave, she said it was a 6-minute walk to the train station from this new development. So that'll be about a 1 or a 2-minute walk to the backyard of Elizabeth's backyard, or anybody on Hall. So those people are going to be super impacted by this building because it's very close to their homes. So I believe that an EIR should be required. When I look at the neg deck, it says there's no impact, no impact, no impact, no impact. But from where I stand and where I live, it seems like there will be a big impact. I also would like to.
Sorry, Jennifer. I'm sorry, your 2 minutes is
A
up.
little bit more time because I'm representing the community. Thank you.
Yeah, if you could just wrap up briefly. Thank you.
With the union trades, I would say I totally agree and I support union work. And I would love to see the city double down on that and require for a high number of people who live within San Mateo County that are union workers. So if they could have some kind of project labor agreement within this development, I think that that would be good for our own residents and also build more money into our economy. I guess I will stop there, but I think that the building is still too high. We appreciate that there's been some changes, but it does not comply with the Eastside Vision Plan. It's too high. It's going to have impact on the neighbors. And I believe that the way the presentation was laid out was to try to say we've mitigated all the concerns, but I'd rather you just be straight, honest, transparent, and say, these are the issues, and here's where we're not going to budge, rather than saying it complies, because it doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And just wanted to clarify that I think I see the GESC letter in the CEQA packet with other public comments. I see it on page 270 of the packet. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I didn't see it on the, sorry, I didn't see it when I go here.
That's fine. We're going to call on the next speaker now. Lynette, do we have someone else with their hand raised?
Yes, we do. Next caller is Dan.
Hi, Dan, welcome. You have 2 minutes.
Hi, Commissioners. Thank you for the presentation and bringing this topic for review. I am also part of the GESC board and also a resident of Hall Street, and will be impacted by this development. I just want to echo what Jennifer had mentioned, that we have an Eastside Vision Plan that this project doesn't completely adhere to. So I'd like a more thorough review of the areas that this development plan does not adhere to, and have an understanding of the impacts of not following that plan is. I just also want to note too, during the applicant's presentation, they mentioned that this project is about 15 years for development. So that is a long time for our neighborhood to be impacted by construction, activities that are occurring, and looking at the community benefits that we receive, especially the Hall residents. I get $30,000 for trees or window treatments, but to deal with 15 years of construction, it's a major impact to our neighborhood and our livelihood. Thank you for your time.
Dan, thank you very much. I will ask clarifying questions, I guess, at the end of the comments. Lynette, do we have a next speaker?
Yes, next speaker is Yifei Ma.
Wonderful. Welcome, Yifei, and you have 2 minutes.
Hi, can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I live on Hall Street, and I was made aware of this development last week during a bike event of the neighborhood. I was known by I was told by the GESC. I think this is very important for us to know what's going on around us. And I totally agree with what GESC has represented us. Additionally, I don't think a lot of the neighbors around us actually know about this development, since I only knew about it at a bike event, not at the not as an official communication. I believe Jennifer requested official communications from the city that I wasn't aware of. So yeah, I think building height is my main complaint. I was in the city zoning meeting a few years ago. I think we had a much more, a bigger community response because a lot of people actually know and care about the neighborhood. In this case, I'm actually surprised that I'm one of the very few people who wrote letters. I think this definitely needs to, we definitely need to hear more about the neighbors' comments and then let them know what's going on. I just think that this all comes as a surprise, and I didn't even have enough time to actually understand the benefits and the risks involved. And also, yeah, that's basically my point. Zoning, timing, there's a lot of concerns that we weren't even having enough time to process. So I wish we could know more about these details and then discuss among ourselves what's the right approach. Okay. If that makes.
All right, great. Thank you for your comments, Yifei. We appreciate it. Lynette, do we have any other hands raised on Zoom?
Yes, we do. Next caller is Jeff.
Great. Jeff, welcome. You have 2 minutes for comments.
Awesome. Great. So my name is Jeff Maley. I live on Hall Street, and I'm a member of the GESC board. So first, I want to thank the city for having this meeting tonight and allowing me to comment. I'm going to echo what Jen Rossi and Dan said earlier about the impact to the neighborhood, especially those of us on Hall Street. It's going to be a massive building, as is the Alexandria building. I respect what the developers and the city have done in terms of compromising the original design, but it's still, certainly from what I read as a layperson, it does seem like it still violates certainly the core purpose of the Greater East Side Innovation Plan, as well as just some of the specific tenets. Additionally, as a resident of the city, I'm concerned that the zoning is being changed to allow this specific development, and I heard the debate earlier in the meeting about why that was so. But generally speaking, it's like the zoning is there for a reason. And I do wonder if that impact to the rest of the neighborhood, is really being considered. Thank you.
Jeff, thank you very much. Lynette, do we have any other hands raised on Zoom?
We have 2 more. Next caller is Anna.
Great. Hi, Anna. Welcome.
Hi.
You have 2 minutes for comments.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. Yes, I also live on Hall Street. Been here for 18 years now. I just want to say I echo what Jen Rossi and Ben and Jeff have all said. This project does not meet the standards of the Greater East Side Vision Plan, Innovation Vision Plan. And I'm just going to be honest, there wasn't a lot of outreach, again, for this project. Flyers can also get lost in the mail. It'd be nice if there could be, I don't know, an email, other ways of communication, a phone call, an email, because half the time people don't even look at the flyers they get in the mail. And there's so many projects going on that I'm just going to say our neighborhood has so much exhaustion from all of the construction going on, from all of the projects. I've lived here since 2007, and I feel like every year we are advocating for ourselves, and we would just really appreciate that there'd be more transparency and that whatever agreements we make with the city do not get changed. It is extremely frustrating. It causes anxiety, it causes depression. Living in a construction zone, we've been living in a construction zone like since COVID. And I don't think anyone who lives on the west side really understands that. And I don't think that the planning department really understands that. I really wish they would consider what it would be like to live in our shoes, constantly fighting for our neighborhood. We're a small neighborhood, and they want to always, it just seems like every square inch of East Side wants to be developed, and it's always about the bottom line. I really don't care if the developer gets $4 million to make it higher. Who cares? I'm curious as to how much he's going to get if the project is 50 feet instead of 85. So I'm just really frustrated. I'm tired of this. Every time I hear about this and how, oh, you know, they didn't follow our agreement. We made agreements with the city. It's exhausting. So I do think there's a lot of exhaustion in our neighborhood, and we get inundated. So that's all I want to say. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the changes you did make, but I still think there needs to be more. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Anna. We appreciate them. Lynette, do we have a next comment on Zoom?
Yes, we do. Next caller is Caroline.
Hi, Caroline. Welcome. You have 2 minutes. Caroline, can you
hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks. My name's Caroline, and I live on Montgomery, also a GESC board member. And thank you, Anna, because I feel the same way. It's totally exhausting having to fight for our neighborhood every time, and it is very stressful. And I didn't want to come here tonight because it stresses me out. I get anxiety just thinking about it. And I am so, it's tiring. The East Side Innovation Vision Plan cost $500,000, I think. Why aren't we following it? I don't understand that. I really don't. I mean, this was supposed to help the city and the neighborhood, and no one's following it. What's going on? And you say that it's consistent with it, this project, but it's not. And so I kind of feel like, should I say, I don't want to say this, but just because you say it so, it doesn't mean it is. And it reminds me of the White House. I'm sorry, but we have to have more transparency. But please, let's just adhere to the East Side Innovation Vision Plan so that we don't have to constantly be fighting for our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Caroline. We appreciate you coming. Lynette, do we have other hands raised on Zoom?
Yes, we have one more. A caller with cell phone number ending 643.
Okay. Welcome, cell phone caller 643. We would welcome you to identify yourself, but you don't have to. But you have 2 minutes to comment.
It's a little more intriguing just being a number.
Very mysterious, yes.
Yeah, this is Jeff Price. I'm at 1011 Hall Street. I don't know about adherence to, the greater plan, but I can definitely comment on the fact that I just heard about this a week and a half ago. And unfortunately, I'm not in town to be able to be there in this meeting. So I'm doing the next best thing. But I think the communication, at least from my standpoint, has been subpar. Again, I knew nothing about this project until I received something in the mail about 10 days ago. So I'd like to learn more. I'm not super fired up about this moving forward, not knowing what the implications are to this. It seems like there are some considerations that still need to be made. So I appreciate the time and for letting me voice my concern.
Thanks very much, Jeff. We appreciate you calling in while you're out of town.
Yep.
Thank you. Lynette, do we have any other hands raised on Zoom?
There are no more.
Okay. We'll just give it another minute for a last call. If anyone is listening on Zoom and you'd like to make a comment, we welcome that. We're on item 7A on 789 Old County Road. And if you would like to raise your hand, you can get 2 minutes to comment. Lynette, has anyone else raised their hand?
There are none.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I think we need a motion to close public comment.
I move to close public comment.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Commissioner Anand?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
Commissioner Tapias?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bundy?
Yes.
And Chair Clements?
Yes, thank you. Lisa, thank you for coming on up. I think there are at least a couple of items that we'd like to have staff just cover before we go into commissioner conversation about this. I heard one concept around how long will this development take? The development agreement's 15 years. And maybe if someone could clarify how long we think the development could take, or what the approximate timing might be.
Sure. So maybe I could just attempt to go through what I think are the questions, and then let me know if I'm missing anything. Okay, so I'll start with your first one, is the construction length. So a 15-year development agreement pretty much says they have the entitlement rights to this project to be built over a period of 15 years. That means they would start it at any time during those 15 years. They would not take 15 years to build it. It's anticipated this project would take 18 months to 2 years to build? About 2 years. About 2 years to build. And we also have a length of construction ordinance that applies to all projects in town, that once you start, right, you just need to keep rolling. So the neighbors should expect about a 2-year construction period.
Right, but
we just don't know when that would start.
Might start.
The developer could answer that, but it's mostly market driven. Let's see. Compliance with the East Side Vision Plan. So in your staff report, in the presentation, I laid out the policies in which staff found this project to be in compliance with the vision plan. Specifically, Section 5, support district subareas, page 42 of the vision plan, establish the industrial core subarea, consider, locate more moderate development heights along Old County Road. So there's not a specific step back from the residential neighborhood. However, there is an area that was identified for further study as a mixed-use residential buffer, and that's along Terminal Way and Tankledge, as well as portions of Old County Road. It is not the center of the site along Branston. That is within the kind of catalyst, the industrial core sub area. So staff did find this project to comply with that East Side Vision study. And maybe after I'm done with a few more questions, I'd like to have the architect, because I know their team did a very deep analysis as well while they were reviewing, if the architect could discuss as well their analysis on how they found the compliance. From the notification question, packet page 254 shows our expanded notification to the 600-foot radius. So you have a graphic in there where you can see it got that first block of Hall Street, both sides of it. That's the 1,000 block, and then a few houses on the East Hall Street block. That should be the 900 block. And so you can see that map in the radius. I am quite familiar with the neighborhood because I lived on Hall Street for many years. And so I really do respect and understand what these neighbors are saying. We are not saying this project will not have an impact. They'll hear the construction noise. The building is large. They'll see the building. We're not saying it won't have an impact, but it's compliant with the codes. We feel it's a, well-designed building, would fit in well with the community. This is an industrial area. The vision plan called for these types of projects in that area. The CEQA analysis found it would not rise to a CEQA impact. There's different things, right? So yes, you're going to see the project, but as our consultant indicated, that's not a CEQA impact. So that doesn't rise to the level of an EIR. The fulfillment timeline, better outreach. I think those were, did you have other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, the GESC letter. That is, I think you did point out, it's on packet page 270. The reason it's there is because it was received during the response to comment period of the CEQA, and so we included it as an official document there, and we responded to it in the response to comments. So that's why it's not separately listed as a public comment. So I think that was maybe the concern. Did you have other questions that I should address?
You know, I see in the staff report about the East Side Vision planning strategies and lots of different priorities, pedestrian and bicycle improvements, first and last mile connections to Caltrain, all these things, tree canopy. But could you speak specifically to any part of the vision plan that talks about stepping down towards the residential side? I know that the project made an effort to step down towards Old County, and with, you know, I think a better impact to Old County. But is there something in the vision plan that talks about stepping down towards the residential?
I was not able to find that specific reference, but there is a reference that's kind of adjacent to the site about kind of being a residential mixed-use buffer area.
Mixed-use buffer.
Right.
So say that again. I know you went through it kind of fast. Talk about, is there a mixed-use buffer between Hall Street and where this is?
Between Hall Street along Terminal and Tanklage, it's an area for further study. So there's not specific requirements in this plan that talk about it. It was envisioned as an area that could be mixed-use residential in the future, and that there would be further study. But there's not a policy in here that talks about stepping down towards the neighborhood. There is a section that talks about locate more moderate development heights on Old County Road. Throughout the process of the Eastside Vision study, there was a lot of comments about Old County is a smaller road and it's considered kind of more of a local street than industrial. And so we received comments by the neighbors that that should have a lower scale than the properties that are east of Old County Road.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it would be helpful if the architect maybe walked through their analysis as well.
That would be great.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Tony?
Is Tony still on there?
I am indeed.
Oh, great. Hi, Tony. Yes, I don't know if you heard that conversation. If
I
you
did.
could
I did.
comment. Yes.
Sure, happy to do so.
Thank you.
I don't know if Dan or Lisa can go to the slide. There should be the very first slide is more of a drawing and a diagram. I don't know if Dan, if you could pull that up.
Is this the one, Tony?
Yes, thanks.
Oh, that one?
Key locations.
Yeah, and that was one of the very first diagrams that we did when we started the project. And what we tried to do was, in graphic form, record what we read as the important points of the plan. And in that drawing, you'll see references to pathways, the emphasis on Old County in terms of the scale, connection to the train station was important. Also, at the perimeter, there are certain key corners and intersections, not necessary on our site, but inform the kind of plan and the circulation. I think the other thing to note is our site falls in a zone that is between the train station and a portion where you can cut under the train tracks to access activity that's further west. And so we wanted to make sure as we developed the plan that both the street frontages on Old County and on Branston reinforced the pedestrian realm. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of the beginnings of the thinking about the design. And then as we looked at the plan in more detail, there were 10 big ideas. And so there are 2 slides where we talked about how we thought we complied with the 10 big ideas. And so if you could just advance a few slides forward, keep going. Actually, I think it's further back, sorry. No, keep going, back.
I think that slide you're thinking of didn't get in here.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, let me just kind of go through that. So some of the ideas that were outlined in that was to establish an open space network, leverage new development to deliver open spaces, improve ecological value. And the project did that by creating the more accessible sidewalk at grade, as well as native planting materials were selected with lower water usage. The project also created a at-grade open space at the entrance of the project. Another one of the big ideas was to promote environmental stewardship. We talked earlier about providing a platform for photovoltaics, obviously removing the concrete plant, and the site is not in a flood hazard zone. So in addition to that, we did locate the ground floor so that it wouldn't be impacted in the future. Some of the other district ideas were, again, to lower the massing down towards Old County Road. Lisa talked about that in terms of the scale of the street that we wanted to create. And so you've seen that in the massing diagrams, et cetera. We also didn't really find any language about stepping down towards the north. Just due north to us are a couple of industrial sites. As we worked with staff, we really focused more on stepping the building down and providing the planting, as we mentioned earlier. There's language about inclusive business environments. There's language about working with the transit TDM plan, which we have done. So in general, by creating the sidewalks, the planting, creating a better pedestrian environment, that was certainly emphasized in the plan. So we did, as we went through the design and the massing and refinements, try to address what we saw as the important parts of the plan.
And I think that also the street frontages against the building and the development site would incorporate the stormwater treatment for the streetscape, as well as treating the stormwater on site. So that was one additional element. And then, part of our community benefit is recognizing this kind of missing link. Once if Subrato goes ahead and undergrounds the power and overhead, and then we do it, there's really just that gap between the northwest corner of our site and Terminal Way. So continuing that streetscape experience for that full length was pretty important for us.
That was helpful. Thank you. Lisa?
While Tony was going through that, I was just, double, triple checking the Eastside Vision Study, just to make sure we didn't miss anything. Again, page 42, right after it says locate more moderate development heights along Old County, the next section, refer to San Carlos Municipal Code section 18.07.030, development standards for further guidance on transitional standards where an industrial district adjoins an RS district. And in this case, this property is not adjacent to an RS district. It's still adjacent to a whole nother block of industrial properties. So I think the transitional standards many of the members of the public are referring to would apply to any properties really on Terminal Way that are immediately adjacent to the single-family district.
Right. So when or if that next parcel ever redeveloped, we would have a more serious conversation about the interface.
Most immediate to the residential neighborhood, which is the north side of Terminal Way.
Got it. Okay, that was very helpful. Thanks so much. All right. With that, we really appreciate all the people who commented and came virtually or came in person to comment about this development. And so now it's time for our commissioner discussion. I think we've had time to get our questions answered. If you did have a remaining question, of course, you can ask it. But I think it's time for comments about things that you support or would like to see changed. So I guess if I could start this direction this time. Is that right? Are you ready for that? Okay,
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner, thank you.
I just have one question. Is there a protocol to send notices to the public X months or days before a big project?
Certainly. So the new state law, and Greg, feel free to correct me, whenever there's a change in zoning text, it's required to be sent, I believe, 20 days prior to the hearing, which we did 30 days? Change in zoning use, thank you, 20 days, I believe it is. Standard public notice, though, is 10 days prior to the hearing. And the code requires a 300-foot notification. Because we had discussed this with the GESC, we expanded that to a 600-foot notification and did it more than 10 days prior to this hearing.
Thank you. So this is regarding the public hearing, but like, for example, this project is coming up and it's been in the making for 3 years. So what is there any law that asks for?
There is not a law. The developer did indicate they had an open house, and the city also held an open house, and I'm forgetting which month that was in. End of January this year, where we noticed all residents of the Greater East Side neighborhood about all the projects that are happening in San Carlos, because there's a lot going on, and so it's a little overwhelming. That was held, I believe, at Loyola Park, where there were boards about each of the projects, and we had staff representatives there to answer any questions and speak to the community. So this project was one of those that was discussed at that meeting.
So what will be helpful would be if they can, so there is a section on public outreach, which is mostly qualitative. If we can have, and transparency goes a long way in building trust. So if we could have the dates on which the public outreach happened, dating as far back as 3 years, like whatever has happened in that time, the dates, who was invited, what kind of hearing was there, because I hear a common concern that the public was not notified enough, and looks like there has been some outreach that has been ongoing. So more quantitative data there in terms of the dates, who attended, and a few notes from the minutes of the meeting will be helpful in just building trust with the public, if that's possible.
Sure.
So, yeah, otherwise, it is definitely a hard line to tread when it comes to big developments. And however, there has to be a balance between keeping the community in mind, as well as also keeping the economic development of the city in mind, and taking things hand in hand. So the more collaborative the process, the more smooth things will go. I do see an effort from the developers' end in terms of reducing the building heights, creating the tree fund, and other concessions that were made with the plan. I know this is a mammoth architectural project, and every change is like hours and hours of extra work. So I do see that effort. In addition, considerations to the lighting plan, non-illuminated signs, all these show consideration for the public and community. Should there be any gaps or any communication gaps, I think just more data will help to bridge them. I also appreciate the benefits package, as well as outreach to the local nonprofits that has happened. Affordable Housing Fund is a big plus, in my opinion. I think our city can really use it, especially considering when these companies will come, that will attract more homeowners and more residences, and we will definitely need more affordable housing spaces to balance that out. Definitely, it is a very significant economic step in our city's progress. So I appreciate that this project, and overall I am prepared to support the recommendation, given if we can add more transparency in terms of public outreach. And thank you for addressing the concerns, Lisa, from the public.
Thank you. Commissioner Tapias.
Thank you. And Commissioner Anand, thank you for your points. Several of them were on my list as well, so I appreciate your very thorough review. I think that for me, I want to kind of underscore what you talked about in terms of transparency and kind of data with respect to the public comment and public kind of outreach process. I recognize and appreciate that both the developer and the city have had a number of meetings and have taken feedback into account, both qualitative as well as with respect to altering the plans and designs, et cetera. So acknowledge and appreciate that. I do think that over time, I would like for us to address both the frequency and transparency of how we take in public comment and close the loop, so to speak, right? So everybody feels heard, everybody understands the why around the decision or the lack of possibility of addressing an issue to build that trust that Commissioner Ahn had mentioned. So agree with that. On the plus side, I do like from an aesthetics and a scale reduction perspective, I like the way that the plans took into account public comment and also took into account as much as we can, softening, if you will, of a really large building, actually 3 really large buildings, right? And I do appreciate the thoughtfulness of the design there. Again, it's a hard line to draw, and I don't think the city or the project team had an easy go at this, or the community had an easy go at this. But I do appreciate the iterative nature of the process. Smaller things, I like the promotion of bike commuting, especially since it's in proximity to the train station. I hope that future projects really try and incorporate additional incentives and additional kind of accommodation for bike and non-vehicle commuting options. And thank you very much for all of the teams around the negotiation of the community benefits, everything from affordable housing to the landscaping. I think that'll go a long way in terms of continuing to build a community that we all are proud of. And lastly, I appreciate the mitigation funds. I think it was $30,000 in mitigation funds around landscaping and window treatments, et cetera. I would really like to, for the city, or I think the city's going to manage that fund, right? For the city to proactively work with the residents, especially given the comments that we've heard tonight around some perhaps miscommunication or comments around how miscommunication in terms of both public comment as well as how this might impact on the north side of that building. So I'd really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Canasti?
Yes. A couple of points. First, I think with respect to the East Side Innovation Plan, there was some concern about that. You know, I went back and looked at the plan too, and I didn't see anything specifically that requires what some of the residents were asking. It does say the following: the vision plan will not directly pertain to nor contemplate changes within the adjacent single-family neighborhood. However, respecting the quality of life within this neighborhood will be a priority. So that, from a policy perspective, I think obviously you want to have a thoughtful transition from commercial properties to residential. And I think this project does that. You've got, you've got the setback, 400 feet from the nearest house. We've added, applicants has added rear setbacks, new landscaping, and a green wall facade, and a tree planting program specifically in response to the neighborhood concerns. I also understand there was a shade study that confirms that even in the winter, the shadows will not reach residential backyards. So I kind of go back to what Lisa already said, is that this project will have impact on the community, no doubt, and not everyone's going to be happy. The question is, does it meet the municipal code and does it meet the standards? And in my estimation, it does. In terms of the CEQA, I think it complies with CEQA. Does it mean there's not going to be personal impacts? Absolutely not. There will be personal impacts, but I don't believe it rises to the level that be required for further CEQA analysis. So I was really impressed with The one thing that did concern me, I guess, one question I have, though, is, and it's the same comments that were made regarding transparency and notice. Do we have a record of notice to the residents? I assume that's done by U.S. mail, or how is that done?
We do mail the notices, and so
Not certified?
they're not certified, no.
Do you have I mean, how do you, if somebody questions that, how do you go back and verify that those people in fact got notice? Or at least those were sent? Do you have a
We have
self-certification?
the mailing list. Our admins mail it out.
Okay.
And if one gets returned mail, we make a note of that in our file,
So you have a record of that?
if there were any returned mails.
Okay.
And I do not believe we had any return mails in this situation.
So, okay, is that something you could, I don't know if you want to share?
The
it with
notices, if anybody signs up for what we call e-notify, so electronic notify with the city clerk's office, they receive all public notices, and they also receive all agendas anywhere in the city. And so anybody that's interested could sign up on that as well.
Got it. And then it seemed like there were some people that the first time never heard anything. And I was wondering if that had to do with, because you increased the notice from 300 to 600 feet.
Correct.
So is that part of the reason, maybe that's why some of the people felt like they weren't given notice? Or do you know?
Well, as I indicated, we did do a notification to the entire East Side community of that open house meeting in January.
Right.
I believe the developer did some expanded notice for an open house as well. I don't know your mailing list. And then, correct, before this hearing, we expanded the notice to a 600-foot radius to try to capture the Hall Street residents.
Right, but with respect to the specific comments tonight, do you know whether or not those people were the people from 300 to 600, the new people that weren't included before? Or you may not know that, I'm just asking.
Well, people found out about it, so that's
Okay.
the good news,
So
because
you
we
can
received
only
those
speculate.
comments.
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine. No, I think the staff did a very good job. I think it's compliant from my viewpoint with the municipal code. It doesn't satisfy everyone's concern, but I'm willing to support it at this point.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to staff and the Minkoff team for the work to develop the project and the time that you've spent with the community. And I also want to thank the community for engaging with the developer and taking time to review the project and provide your input. I do recognize that there is a lot going on the east side, and you're experiencing a lot of change as the historic industrial uses turn over to the higher value developments. I think that this site is one that is obviously ripe for development, so some project was going to come in here, and that this is a project that's reflective of the type that the market will support. With respect to the East Side Innovation District Vision Plan, the text of the plan does identify a 120-foot maximum. The staff report accurately describes a 5-story building at 85 feet with a 99-foot mechanical screen, so that's 21 feet lower than the maximum. And I can see that there could be interpretation whether this reflects moderate heights. And members of the public have focused on the height of the building as sort of the primary concern among many members that have commented. I think that this is somewhat unfortunate as the project does address many other features that are included in the East Side Vision Plan, and the project is really transformative of this site in terms of improving its character, the walkability, the bikeability in this stretch of Old County that is really pretty hostile in terms of its current walkability. And I think the project is really better than what a by right development could be for this site. I appreciate all of the open houses, the GESC meetings, the mandatory notices, and the expanded notices. It's unfortunate that some folks are just finding out about it, but it does seem to me that there was, sort of above and beyond outreach that has occurred. I appreciate that the applicant's proposed project incorporates several measures that have sought to address concerns that have been provided along the way. There's increased setbacks. There's a reduction, a very significant reduction in square footage through height reductions and increased setbacks. There's varied roof setbacks. It's at scale with nearby buildings. It has a sense of scale along Old County with landscaping and trees along the north side, really beautiful view corridors and the automated shades and revised signage. I really appreciate the off-site community benefits and the completion of the bike and ped improvements. I support the shift to the long-term bike spots and wanted to shout out the inclusion of the solar, and we didn't talk about it, but the bioswale along Branston. I didn't ask a stormwater question. It's the first time.
I know.
I knew the answers this time. And we didn't talk about the project's design that much, but the central entryway is really beautiful. I like the connected terraces and the airiness of the art feature. The green wall, I'm not sure if it's going to be our first one, but I like it as screening and it's overall softening along the edge there. I like how the building has some articulation along Old County rather than just a straight shot. And there's some kind of bend and movement to it. I like the widened setbacks and how the corner along Old County and Branston kind of provides some space for gathering as well. As you get into final design, if you'd consider some bigger design storms than Atlas 14 for the stormwater features, I would appreciate that. And I think that an M&D is the appropriate CEQA mechanism based on the consultant's feedback on the analysis. So I'm supportive of the project, and I appreciate the GESC's continued support and the developer's time.
Thank you, Vice Chair. My colleagues have said a lot of things about this, and I agree with most of them. I really appreciate the Greater East Side and then the Hall Street residents engaging in the process. I agree. We have a pretty growth-oriented community. We are lucky enough to have a market that will support new commercial projects. And so, this is kind of an area that is undergoing some change. And I have to say that one of the best things to me about this project is how close this is to Caltrain and how natural that is over time to change a little bit in uses. 0.3 miles with a 6-minute walk to Caltrain is just, it's going to, over time, be kind of a more vibrant area with more people in that area. And so I appreciate the applicant and staff and the community discussing the things that need to happen in order for those uses to kind of live not next to each other, but in the same couple of blocks. Big picture, the changes on the massing, the reduction on the massing, the stepping down to Old County, I think makes this kind of a little bit lower profile, a little bit less dense, visually more appealing, more neighborhood scale project. I also, again, working with neighbors to do things like the shade study, which we know is not required for the CEQA analysis. We appreciate that kind of collaboration, trying to make sure that you've thought about things from different perspectives. So thank you for that. I really like the architecture of the building. I'm going to say that. I like it more than the previous architecture. You still have the horizontal elements, but it seems more light and airy. And I appreciate the shading and the kind of asymmetrical, what do we call it, an eyebrow? Something along the top of the building, the earth tones as well. And I also really like the entryway with the, I think it was said crosslamp timber, but the timber elements, bringing people into the site and making it welcoming off of Branston, along with greenery. I feel like the applicant has given a lot of thought to the plantings and the greenery, both along our sidewalks, which are getting wider and more pedestrian oriented. So I think that's helping the neighborhood big picture. And then also clearly providing shading of lights, of any impacts of being higher, thinking thoughtfully about what kinds of trees, how fast growing they are, and how dense they are from the start. So I appreciate that. Plus, of course, the planting fund and the flexibility on the use of the planting fund based on very recent feedback, right? So I feel like you're trying the best you can to work in this dynamic environment with people giving you feedback. So thank you for that. The TDM and the estimated 27% rate to production is impressive. And so again, reinforcing bike lanes and the pedestrian experience along Old County and then crossings into the train station is important. And we look forward, I'm looking forward to the day where we do get the TMA up and going and then we see how things are working with that. I also wanted to say that the additional undergrounding and along Old County, I think will really help that to be a more pedestrian and bike-friendly location and with enhanced bike lanes as well. Streetlights, trees, and then flashing beacons to make sure it's safer to cross over to the train station. All those things I think are important to make this area more livable and more kind of pedestrian friendly. And again, also, I saw that the Dirt Hall route had been changed, given feedback and staff saying, please don't go north along Old County because there's more residences over there. So I appreciate the routing around that to minimize residential exposures. And then finally, I'll say, I appreciate the purple pipe and the photovoltaics, you know, the sustainability elements in the project, I think are to be commended. And I'm glad to see projects like this going up in San Carlos. So again, not an easy project without any impacts to anybody in the community, yet I think that's probably safe to say that even when it's a, you know, single-family home that's expanding 2 doors down, as a lot of us have experienced, that is also the case as things change and grow in the community. So on the whole, I support the project and think that it is in a great location for what the uses are. So with that, I think we're back to the formal motions. And again, we have control over some things and then other things we're recommending to the City Council. Lisa, did you have a comment there?
To make a reminder, as you're considering the motions, if you wouldn't mind adding the amended wording for condition number 6, as well as the minor amendment to the development agreement to provide flexibility with either some window treatment or the tree planting fund. And then before people drop off the Zoom, just wanted to let you know the item is tentatively scheduled for October 14th for the City Council. That's a Tuesday. And we will use that same 600-foot notification once we have that hearing date confirmed. Thank you.
Lisa, thank you. Yeah, this is not the end point for a lot of this discussion. We are just the way station before the City Council does approve the pieces that it has the rights to approve. We're just advising the council. So hopefully folks who have tuned in tonight are able to also follow that. You said it was, sorry, Lisa, which date? October?
Tuesday, October 14th.
October 14th. And the vice chair has her.
I do have one question. The resolution refers to 2 buildings. Should it say 3?
Yes, it should. Well, it's 2 office buildings with a parking
structure. We can make that change.
But maybe we can.
It says 2 new life science research and development buildings.
Which is true. I guess the 3rd building is the parking to accommodate it.
With a parking structure, we can add that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good reading. Detailed people. Okay. So should we vote on them separately? Does anybody? Yes. Okay. So let's do the first motion. Would somebody like to make the first motion about the CEQA and the mitigated neg deck?
I move that the Planning and Transportation Commission make the findings outlined in the staff report and adopt the resolution recommending the City Council certify the mitigated negative declaration and adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting plan.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you. And I just want to say, you know, now that we've got a vote on the floor, any final comments? No. Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Anand?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
Commissioner Tapias?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bundy?
Yes.
And Chair Clements?
Yes. Thank you. Would somebody like to make the second motion presented here? And I think this is the one that will have the amended condition. Is that right? For the north facade?
This is the one that relates to the development agreement?
Oh, right. And so the minor amendment to the DI.
That's correct.
Thank you. Vice Chair?
I further move that the Planning and Transportation Commission make the findings outlined in the staff report and adopt the resolution recommending the City Council adopt the ordinance approving the planned development plan and adopting the zoning map designating the site plan development and approve the development agreement as amended.
I second.
Is that sufficient? Yeah. Okay. Please.
Commissioner Anand?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
Commissioner Tapias?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bundy?
Yes.
And Chair Clements.
Yes. Thank you. And I need a motion for the third portion. Chair.
I further move that the Planning Commission approve the Design Review Certificate, Transportation Demand Management Plan, and Grading and Dirt Haul Certificate, as well as the amended revised wording for Condition 6, subject to the conditions listed in the certificate APNs 046131610 and 046131630 for the reasons incorporated in the staff report and with the conditions in the code compliance certificate.
Great, and I will second that. Thank you for the amendment.
Commissioner Anand?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
Commissioner Tapias?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bundy?
Yes.
And Chair Clements.
Yes. And now I have an announcement. No. I did want to also just note, there was a lot of discussion about our general outreach procedures here, and it sounds like there's a new state law that pertains to the outreach procedures or affecting our outreach procedures. And so I guess I'd like to talk to staff about potentially bringing back a short presentation. I don't know if Andrea is free. Yes, bringing back just a short presentation or comments at the end of another meeting that kind of goes through just, what our procedures are and the vehicles that we use, the vehicles we employ, like the city newsletter, to see if people want to chime in and make any further comments. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there, all right, I guess there's not a disclaimer or an appeal slide to. Yeah. Okay.
I'll just, through the
Yes.
chair, just,
Greg, please.
and we make this announcement, actually, the third motion that you made actually can be appealed to the city council within
Thank
10
you.
days.
I appreciate that. So thank you. Third motion is subject to appeal if somebody files within 10 days. Otherwise, it shall become final. Thank you, Greg, for the clarification. I was waiting for that slide with the language. Thanks. All right. That brings us to item 8, reports, correspondence, and general information. Thank you to everyone who presented. Item 8A, report on recent city council actions.
At the last City Council meeting, the council received a presentation on outdoor dining and retail display standards, as well as obtained some feedback on formula businesses, personal services, and parking maximums for inclusion in the downtown specific plan. There were no decisions made. It was really just to present kind of where we're at and get some feedback for that, as that's still moving along. The council also considered a resolution adopting a preferred alternative for the midterm improvements along US 101 Holly for the bike and pedestrian project. And then finally, they also provided proclamations for former commissioners Garvey and Castaneda. So that was all at the last meeting.
Thank you. And I saw a photo of that. That's very nice of the council to do that. We're on item 8B, Planning and Transportation Commission. Any comments or reports from commissioners? No? Okay. Item 8C, any correspondence that did not pertain to 789 Old County tonight?
Only that correspondence.
Okay, thank you. And then item D, planning staff comments, reports, or updates
Sure,
of
so
current
just
projects.
a few updates. Our next meeting on the 15th, as of now, and I'll know for sure tomorrow, we have one item scheduled, and it's a presentation by the Sheriff's Office on pedestrian and bicycle safety. We also tentatively have scheduled for the 6th, which is the following meeting, a TDM study session. And that, of course, is all subject to change, but that's where we're at as of tonight.
So the TDM is on the 6th,
The
you said?
6th, exactly.
Okay. Okay, that would be in October already. Gosh, that's, geez. The time is flying. All right, great. I think with that, we are done. It is time to adjourn. Thank you all for tonight's meeting. We appreciate the robust conversation. And Greg chiming in as well. Thanks, Greg.